We're going to have a 45-minute presentation. We're going to be in and out, and then we're going to move you to be able to see the integral part of the project. So I'm going to hand this over to one of the hardest working people in the city, Garrett.
Fantastic. So thank you, Jim, and to everyone here, welcome to the Wall Street Improvement Project second design meeting. For those of you that attended the first meeting in the Wall Street Theater, or filled out the survey online, or gave feedback through the website, welcome back. And then for everyone that's new to the meeting, our goal tonight is to get you up to speed and break out and collect more feedback as this design continues to evolve. Right? So thank you for being here. On the screen you can see a project area, which might be familiar to some. For those of you that are new to the project, you'll see that this project is all about the greater Wall Street neighborhood and area. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see Belden Avenue and Wall Street. And one of the intents and goals of this project is to improve the intersection that's right outside of this library. That's challenging for many, many reasons. The project itself includes the entire corridor of Wall Street. And also Burnell Boulevard. You know, we recognize that Wall Street is one of the major east-west connections across the Norwalk River and one of the city's major east-west connections. So as part of this project, not only are we going to strengthen that, but we're also going to look at how we can incorporate Burnell Boulevard and bring it back to a two-way roadway to improve connectivity and mobility throughout the city. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the project incorporates a portion of Main Street between Burnell Boulevard and East Wall Street. And that's the area around Freeze Park as well. And then you'll see some of the other roadways. You know, we'll talk a lot about tonight about the potential of River Street, also transformational improvements to Isaac Street, and we're also looking at basically from the train tracks all the way up Commerce Street to the Wall Street corridor. But before I move on from the slide, I did want to just talk about the history, which many people have elaborated on. But when I joined the city, it was really interesting to find out that there was a number of plans done for the Wall Street neighborhood and corridor. As far back to 1986, there was a business district plan, and then it seemed like every 20 years there was a new plan. In 2003, there was a Wall Street area plan, and then as recent as 2019, there was a West and Wall neighborhood plan. But I really wanted to emphasize that this time is really different. We have the support of the mayor, of the city's administration, our council members, and through that we've got funding to actually create design plans to hand over to a contractor. And this is really, you're here tonight to provide input into what will be a shovel-ready project at the end of this process, which will conclude next year. One of the other things that makes it really different is just the amount of public engagement we've gotten. So it was so fantastic to see the turnout. We had over 350 people at the Wall Street Theater, the first public meeting. And we've continued to solicit feedback throughout the process, but the energy from residents, business owners, and stakeholders has really been unparalleled. And I think that's got the attention of a lot of different people, because you can't do this without money. So I just wanted to thank Senator Duff for bringing $3.5 million of state funding, which will be the first portion of the design plans you'll see here tonight, and that will help improve the intersection right outside the library and also make Burnell Boulevard potentially two ways to accommodate traffic throughout construction. Right? But there's also, you can't do it without funding, and there's also a lot of other funding. So this project and this energy from the community has brought forward an endorsement from our Council of Governments that oversees Norwalk, WestCog, to solicit another $4 million for transportation capital improvement funding. And then also, we've gotten the attention of Congressman Jim Himes, for which this project is his #1 priority for next year's community project funding. So at the end of the day, we've secured nearly $13 million, and that doesn't include other investments which we're putting into the Yankee Doodle garage in East Wall Street as well. So if there's anything I want to convey tonight, it's that we're getting this done. So really quickly, I just want to talk about some of the larger project goals. You'll see a number of them tonight, and you'll be able to discuss a number more with our development team. But we really heard at the last meeting that everyone really wants to build on the strengths of Wall Street. So we know we have a really strong existing core group of businesses. There's many new businesses that have been opening to the city. And as part of this project, one of the major goals is really strengthen parking around those businesses, access, mobility, connections to those businesses, and really create space on the streetscape, right, on things like on-street dining and wider sidewalks. Some other things that we know, the area has really great bones. So anyone that's familiar with this neighborhood will know the great public buildings we have, such as the library, which we're in tonight, other historic buildings like the theater, and then also the great open spaces we have like Freeze Park. And another one of those major goals of this project is to really strengthen and build upon the assets that we have. Another major goal of this project is really to look at how we capture the unique sense of community and spirit within the Wall Street neighborhood. Just walking the streets, talking to business owners, it became evident really quickly that this needs to be a regional destination and an attraction, and we really want to create a project that strengthens that core. And lastly, we're transportation guys, so we understand there's a lot of challenges improving not only the through-flow traffic at safer and more village-like speeds, but also a number of other improvements at intersections and the streets along the corridor. So you'll be hearing from a number of representatives from our team. There'll be about 6 or 7 or so speakers, so I won't go into details right now, but I did want to recognize the TMP team, Transportation, Mobility, and Parking team that's here, and that will be at the breakout sessions. Everyone from our principal engineers to our traffic signal techs to our planners will be at your disposal to talk about the project later on. We're joined by Fussin O'Neill. They are responsible for the design and the planning related to this project, and really brought forth a lot of great ideas. And lastly, you'll be speaking with members of Wesley Style Associates, landscape architects, who really add all the color and brought some really great ideas of the potential and really put the polish on what the plans that you'll see tonight. So just a little bit about where we are in the process. We had the last workshop on June 14th. We got over 3,000 individual comments from the public. We've taken some time to go through them, and you'll be hearing from our project team within a few moments shortly about what some of the major feedback was that we've heard from the first project meeting. We've taken those comments, we've collected survey data, traffic numbers, everything to determine what this corridor can be. And what we think is we have some pretty great alternatives, but ultimately we're here before you tonight for you to provide your feedback and make sure we're on the right path, we're headed in the right direction so we can advance the design. But throughout the remainder of the night, there'll be a number of stations set up throughout the library for you to provide feedback and comment. Ultimately, at the end of this meeting, we'd like to take that comment and start to look at how we can advance the designs, and we intend to hold another meeting in March of next year. Just a couple of the goals tonight. I just want to reiterate, we just want more feedback. These aren't the final plans. You'll be seeing concepts, alternatives, and we have a number of mechanisms to obtain feedback, whether providing sticky notes or drawing on the plans, but encourage you to get as creative. So right now, I want to welcome up Arnold Robinson from Fussin O'Neill. He's going to talk about what we've heard from the community.
Quick show of hands. Who was here at the Wall Street Theater on June 14th for that workshop? About half of you, which is good. It's a great mixture to have. So I want to give a quick summary of community input so far, because we all come from different perspectives. Some of you spend every day on Wall Street, you may live on Wall Street, and some folks may have only been here for the June workshop and need to catch up. And some folks, this might be their first interaction with the project. So I want to give you a quick summary of where we've been and what we've done. So we all gathered 350 folks at Wall Street Theater on the 14th. We've also had a visual preference survey that was open for about 2 months. And we did some stakeholder interviews as well. So great turnout, fantastic event, ton of energy. As Garrett said, 3,000 measurable inputs that we went through and cataloged about everything related to the physical nature of the space and operational nature of Wall Street. We had 3 stations that we collected input from. The first station was broad. What's good to keep in the project area? What do you already like that's a strength? But what can be improved upon? What do you not like and want to change? We also then had a detailed station on intersections and streets, and about the way traffic moves, and about bicycles and crossings and everything. And then finally, gathering and event spaces. Where do people want to gather and host kind of community events that are going on? The visual preference survey, and I also want to note this, I do this all over New England, this community engagement, gathering people to talk about where they want their community to go. I have never seen energy like I see in Norwalk in terms of the number of people who responded to our survey and came out to this charrette. It's been incredible. So we had 472 completed surveys, and we asked folks about everything related to the space: crosswalks, lighting, sidewalks, street trees. What do you like? What do you not like? And we presented pictures of those. But what was also interesting was who responded, and I think that's an important thing to note. So, 86% Norwalk residents, but the number of property owners was about 90 property owners were part of this. And then business owners, about 42 business owners were part of this. And then look at this great bracket. How long have you lived and worked in the downtown Norwalk area? 0 to 5 years, about 35%, a huge amount of new energy, which is fantastic. The middle is kind of like 6 to 20 years. There's some people in there. But look at the institutional memory and people who have been committed to this area more than 20 years, 37%. So that's a great mix to have. Folks who have been here and have been committed, but also new blood. And then age was a pretty typical breakdown, but it skewed a little younger than I expected, which was great. So we asked folks, how do you react to things like this? Do you want to see this or not see this in your community? Whether it's Cobra Head sort of highway lighting, or whether it's sort of more traditional downtown placemaking lighting. And we gathered those responses, we went through those and sorted through all those. So the charrette inputs, visual preference surveys, talking with staff, looking at all sorts of data. I want to boil it down to 8 slides. What did we hear from you? Because it's going to affect the design you see tonight that we want to talk with you about. So what did we hear? Intersections and roadways. Create roads that are scaled for a safe downtown. Comments about sort of, highway scale and high speeds and not being conducive to walking or other uses. Create intersections that work for all different user types was one piece we heard. What we heard about parking. Provide adequate on-street parking for customers and visitors. It's an important part of what makes a neighborhood work. But many people don't like the existing angled parking spaces, was another piece of feedback. And then create direct, safe connections from parking facilities that already exist around the region, around the district, to business areas and attractions. Because right now those connections can be indirect and feel unsafe. Walking and biking routes, what we heard. Connect existing pathways. You've got all of these things that come into your project area, but it's not necessarily straightforward how you connect through the project area. Improve sidewalks, so they're great places to walk, but also so they accommodate outdoor or sidewalk dining. Connect existing bike trails and routes. Again, you've got some great regional systems coming in, but it's often not clear how you make through connections and bring people through. And provide safe spaces for bikes to move through the project area. We also heard about transit facilities. Improve intermodal connections, whether that's cars connecting to bus, connecting to all sorts of different ways of travel, but improving transit facilities so folks can take mass transit easily. Gathering and event spaces. This is what we heard from all those comments. Create a major public gathering space that can be closed for events and celebrations so that there's a large scale way for Norwalk to gather and celebrate and be together. Enhance Freeze Park and the connections to it. It can be tough to get to and tough to get through. And then intersections as small gathering spaces. It's not just that there's one space that you get together, but there's opportunities outside of storefronts. There's opportunities at intersections for people to sit, to gather, to connect with each other. We did a lot, the phrase that I like is that we did our homework for traffic research and analysis. And what we heard was that there's this dual nature of Wall Street. It's a major east-west thoroughfare. There needs to be safe throughput of vehicles that needs to be traversed. But it is possible to balance high vehicular traffic with throughput with more complete streets that accommodate pedestrians safely, bicycles, other means. And it is a connector north of 95. The river is, a major factor in the city, and this neighborhood is where east-west traffic moves through. And so as Garrett said, you're going to hear about Burnell as currently one way, and what are those options for increasing that east-west connectivity. So out of that, what we heard from you, we put together some design goals. I'm going to show you 2 slides of the sort of undergirding philosophy that is going to lead to what you're going to be looking at tonight. So create roads that are scaled for a safe downtown. Create intersections that are safe for all users. Provide adequate on-street parking for customers and visitors. And provide safe spaces for bikes to move through and in. Improve sidewalks as great places to walk. Create spaces for people to gather. Accommodate outdoor sidewalk dining. respect the historic context, and integrate the vibrant arts culture, which we've done by putting Garrett next to this super cool bike rack with I Love Wall. I don't know how he built that. He welded that all by himself to get that together. But these design goals they sound like mom and apple pie. They're all fantastic. But physically putting them into the landscape is the challenge for any project. So what you're going to hear next from our design team is what do those things look like specifically out in this neighborhood, out in Wall Street. There you're going to see an overall concept plan, and we're going to break it down into 3 major categories: intersections, roads, and parking, sidewalks and public spaces, and gathering spaces and trail connections. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Johnny.
Thanks, Arnold. Again, I'm John Guzzi. I'm a senior transportation engineer at Fuston O'Neill and leading project manager for the team. As Arnold mentioned, first and foremost, I'll be talking about intersection, roads, and parking, but really from the curb line in. We're going to be utilizing the analyses that we performed in the last few months, and certainly the feedback that you all provided back in June. First off, I'll take you on a tour working along the project area, and we have the main intersection right outside here at Belden, West Wall, and Mott. As you see, we know that this intersection has a lot of vehicles, buses. There's a lot of volume coming through this intersection. So, as mentioned before, balancing the vehicle with the pedestrian is key. With the current configuration, we understand that Norwalk has a historic trolley configuration, what's out there today. But we also heard that pedestrians often feel struggling to cross, Wall Street. They get trapped in the medians. Their head is always on a swivel. There's various conflict points. It's inaccessible. So it's very daunting. With an intersection like this, that's more modernized, shrinking it, reducing it, that enables increased safety for pedestrians. The sidewalk crosswalks are shorter, they're better aligned, they're well delineated, and in doing so, it creates that increased safety. Such examples have been implemented elsewhere, and things outside the curb lines gives opportunities for more pedestrian plaza space, which Tom and Wes will talk in a minute. Moving forward, in terms of the Wall Street corridor, the heart of the project, this area is where we had to really balance the volume of vehicles with pedestrian safety. We want pedestrians to feel comfortable. We want businesses to thrive. By doing so, you want vehicles to go slower. So implementing a true road diet by bringing in those curb lines in several feet enables that to happen. Implementing traffic calming measures such as a raised crosswalk adjacent to Wall Street Theater is another crucial element. All this has to be done also with on-street parking. We heard back in June how crucial that is, both for the businesses to thrive on the deliveries and for their customers. So here shows a cross section of the reduced area in at Station 2. We can certainly talk more about that. Moving forward to the intersection of Main and Burnell. I won't go too deep into the layout of the roundabout, but this is another implementation configuration that promotes increased safety, better traffic flow and operations, lower speeds. Roundabouts help with maintenance costs, operations, lower emissions. So there's so many benefits to the roundabout here, but the key element is, when Burnell is, transfers to a two-way operation, it helps that flow and transit of vehicles get out of Burnell. What it also does is, you noticed on the last slide with Wall Street, due to the balancing game of vehicles and pedestrians on that sidewalk space, the on-street bike facilities are now going to come from East Wall up Main to Burnell. That helps take that left-hand movement and create that pedestrian cyclist corridor, mobility corridor. And leading into Burnell, the space that was there enabled us to have a state-of-the-art, modern, progressive a safe feeling for off-street separated bike facilities in both directions. And it is suited well, you know, it's next to the NTD, the pulse point, so everything within this area combined with the raised intersection that Steph will talk in a minute about at River and Burnell creates such a good placemaking feel here. Quickly before I turn it over, you know, Burnell with the two-way, it's been stated before, it's going to alleviate traffic on Wall Street during construction. It can help with alternatives during that staging. So there's so many benefits here, and we're super excited. We have a quick cross-section also to show what these facilities, you know, potentially will look like in the future. But we're really excited, and you know, I'll turn it over for everything, you know, outside the curb lines to WSA.
Thank you, Tom. This is Tom Cross. I'm Wesley Stout. We're both from Wesley Stout Associates. John just did a great job explaining what he talked about as the public roadway, sort of curb to curb. Our responsibility is really the curb line to the buildings or the open spaces adjoining that. So, you know, thank you, Jim, for setting the vision tonight, getting this tremendous public engagement process in place. Great to see all of you here tonight. And then Arnold did a great job of setting the stage for the discussion tonight, the goals, what you're going to be seeing, what the opportunities are for you to, you know, touch base with us all, see the different stations, get into the design in more detail, which we're not going to do in this preamble, but we will be here for the next 2 hours or so to get into that detail with you. And then John, you did a great job of explaining the sort of curb-to-curb experience, the great benefit of the roadway redesign is making this what I call a more modern roadway. These streets were originally designed for trolley cars. If everybody acknowledges and remembers the big turning radiuses at the intersections, the broad intersections, very difficult for people to cross, all sorts of challenges. But that was a roadway that was designed and put in place 100 years or more ago. What we're talking about and going to be talking about tonight is a modern roadway. A roadway that's built for people, built for cars, built for mass transit, built for bicycles, and really built for the community. We see this as an opportunity to use we have a dramatically increased sidewalk zone in these plans. It's probably about maybe 60% more sidewalks. Space is going to be within the redesigned roadways. Again, safer crossings as was brought out, narrower crossings, better spaces for circulation for cars, better linkages, better connections to all the spaces. So, with that, I wanted to, obviously the one you see here is the intersection of Wall, Wall, Belden, and West. This one's been really a quandary for many years. It's very oddly designed because of the old trolley tracks, and I think it's going to get an entire new life. This will be the gateway to the new Wall Street proper, the future of Wall Street. And with that, I'll say these last few words and turn it over to Tom. We're about halfway or more through the presentation, so we won't take you too much longer before we get to the stations. But I want to introduce Tom Cross from my office to explain some of the highlights of our plans, and again, we'll be here to talk. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Wes. Again, Tom Cross, landscape architect for Wesley Stout Associates. And like Wes mentioned, I'm going to try and hit some of the high notes on the curb to building design. And then we can go more in depth and more into detail at the stations. The intersection at Belden, West, and Wall, that's the biggest infrastructure and roadway improvement that we have. And the realignment has created more public realm space from curb to building. The feedback that we received is that the community wanted more public gathering spaces. And we're creating smaller, more intimate gathering spaces at the intersections versus a larger gathering space that you'll see at River Street in a little bit. These public spaces could be used for a variety of things: reading a book that you just grabbed from the library, having a bite to eat from a restaurant at a nearby restaurant, catching up with a friend, and more. The long arching and overlapping planters, they help define these intimate spaces and extend into some of the more narrow spaces as you get away from the intersection. The shapes are also reminiscent of the archway, the arching roadways that Wes mentioned that the trolley system used to use. These planters also help soften and frame the corners of the intersection as you enter that gateway and arrive to Wall Street. And speaking of gateways, these are the iconic gateway arches that we're proposing as a part of the concept design. Our goal is to create something iconic and memorable, create a gateway into this revitalized district, and most importantly, create a sense of identity for Wall Street. The plan on the screen is showing 3 arches, but in total there'll be 5. There'll be an additional arch in between River and Commerce Street, and there'll be a 5th one on East Wall. So we talked about the arches, and now I want to talk about a more pedestrian scale feature of the Wall Street streetscape. As you can see on the left, that's one arch, and then further down over here, that's the second arch. But streetscape, what is streetscape? Like we were talking about before, it's everything between the curb and the building. So it's trees and plantings, it's lighting for safety, it's green infrastructure, improved crossings for safety, benches, bike racks, public art, and more. The existing streetscape conditions are, Wes alluded to it, but on average they're about 10 to 12 feet in width. That's the pedestrian zone. And the proposed concept design is making them about 20 to 22 feet wide, and in some cases greater. That's not accounting for the corner plaza areas. That's the Wall Street corridor. This gives us room, plenty of room for the much needed outdoor dining that was asked for in the feedback from the community, plus more. In the plan, you can also see character images above of some of the streetscape elements, and you can start to imagine what the new Wall Street corridor is going to look like. Now I'll go into a little more depth about pedestrian crossings. As the roads have been scaled down for safety, the crosswalk lengths have been shortened and made safer. On the left and right are images with green infrastructure. What is green infrastructure? It's a design approach that promotes filtering and absorbing water where it falls and building with nature in urban conditions, not to mention landscape benefits for mental and physical health. The image on the right also illustrates a raised table and raised crosswalk conditions that we could talk about in more detail. And then the center image is of Horace Silver, who's an American jazz pianist who was born in Norwalk and in actually the Wall Street area, I've been told. And the idea is to, if I go back, you can see that piano keyboard in the middle of the plan. That will be to pay tribute to Horace Silver and also tie into some of the historical context. Next is some lighting and street tree images. These are examples of the streetscape I was talking about to help improve the character and overall safety of the neighborhood. And then historical context, as I was alluding to, the designs focused on modernizing Wall Street and the area, but it also pay respect and incorporate historical elements, such as the piano keyboard, as well as we're thinking there's going to be reclaimed materials that we'll find old trolley tracks and bricks that we could repurpose as a part of the design, as well as using street lights that are historically inspired, as well as a trolley circulator that could bring people to and from the Wall Street area and other parts of Norwalk, and also an idea of illuminating the historical Wall Street Bridge. Lastly, before I turn it over to Stephanie, arts and integration. Arts and culture are already a vibrant part of the neighborhood fabric, and we're looking to build upon that theme. There's many opportunities, as you've seen, the wall murals throughout the neighborhood. There's always room for more. We're talking about crosswalk murals as well, creative bike lane graphics, interactive bike racks, like you see Garrett and I Love Wall, as well as sculpture opportunities that could be incorporated into the West Belden Wall intersection, Wall Street, and other areas, including River Street, the corner of River Street where that image is taken there. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Stephanie to talk about the next topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie White. I'm with Fuss & O'Neill. And the next series of slides I'm going to walk you through are more of the remaining pieces of the pedestrian enhancements to the project. And what I'm going to walk you through is how we can enhance and strengthen connectivity. Connectivity in terms of connectivity to the Harbor Loop Trail, to Freeze Park, and to Yankee Doodle Garage. Additionally, we are going to look at how River Street can be reimagined to a festival street. In the public workshop in June, we heard a resounding yes to the idea of creating a festival-like street for the area where large events could be hosted and the street could be closed down for just strictly pedestrian to have those events. And a little plug, on November 29th, the city is doing a little test run of that idea where River Street will be closed and used for the Miracle on Wall Street. So urge you to come and see how this idea of this festival street will work. So to start, River Street. So how could River Street look like a festival street? So what it would do is we would be removing the curbs, we would be removing the asphalt, removing the double center yellow line, and reimagining it in which it would be a flat plane, almost like a plaza-like feel. You would have textured pavement coming through building face to building face, and that would really create more of this pedestrian-like feel. You can see here we've imagined some playful forms on the ground plane, harking back to the river and the water movement, as well as providing overhead string lights to enhance that really festival-like feel. Another resounding yes or wants that we heard from the public workshop on River was greening the corridor, having more street trees. It was very bleak. There are some challenges with River Street in terms of there's some structure underneath that doesn't allow us to plant trees right at grade. But what we're looking at is, oh boy, that was not the right one. How we can incorporate planters, raised planters that would have bench seating into it, and that would allow for street trees to be planted. And that would be in this area where we have some challenges with structure underneath, so sort of raised tree planters here. But then we have opportunities to have in-grade planters there as well. Additionally, as John had mentioned, in terms of connectivity, the intersection where River meets Burnell would be raised. And what that does is really enhances the connection to the Harbor Loop Trail coming out from here. Now you have much more bike mobility access to River Street. Additionally, what we're looking at, behind River there's these dead ends, and we want to remove those sort of dead end spaces. And the idea would be creating this grand staircase with lots of lighting and an inviting appeal to bring you down to the river. So how does that look in cross-section? So this obviously wouldn't be just a pedestrian type street day to day. It would still function as a street, and what that is known as a shared street. It's a relatively new term in the US, but in Europe they've been doing it for hundreds of years, where the vehicles and the pedestrians all share this street. In the US right now, our street design, roadway design is really auto-centric. It's all putting the vehicle first, and that reverses it. Shared street reverses it in terms of putting the pedestrian as priority and making accommodations for the vehicle. So you can see here, the cars can still traverse through river, and that is done by using vertical elements to delineate where the car goes versus pedestrian. So where the street trees are and the light poles would be, that's sort of where the travel piece would be for the cars, and there would be on-street parking in between those tree planter. Then moving on to connections to Freeze Park. And here we're looking at creating a much stronger connection to Freeze Park from River Street. And the idea would be creating a pedestrian bridge, like you see up the top here, over the Norwalk River. A lot of developments have kind of turned its back on the river. The river is a wonderful asset. We really want to embrace the river more and bring people to it. And doing so, we would create this river walk along there. There's a small sidewalk along there. We would look to widen it, add lighting, create bump outs, this sort of esplanade-like feel, and creating that connection back over to Freeze Park and really activating Freeze Park much more than it is today. And then last, the Yankee Doodle Garage. So right now, for the Yankee Doodle Garage, when you park in here, you have to have this circuitous type movement to get to Wall Street. You have to go upriver to even get to Wall. So what we're looking to do is really break through in back of the post office here and bring a wonderful access out into this newly formed plaza. And this would have the festival-like string lighting. It would feel safe, it would be brightly lit, and it would be a very wide corridor, pedestrian corridor spine that would get you to the Yankee Doodle Garage. And with those Yankee Doodle Garage improvements, we're going to be enhancing the pedestrian sidewalks along here, so it will be a much easier and more pleasant experience getting from Yankee Doodle Garage to Wall Street. So to summarize, those connections is really, enhancing and strengthening our connections to Yankee Doodle, to Freeze Park, and to the Harbor Loop Trail. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Arnold, who's going to give us the rundown on how the station breakups are going to work.
Thanks. Yeah. So we recognize that as we run through this design, which has so many elements to it, that we can't tell you everything in one presentation. And we learned a lot at that first workshop about the value of talking with you one-on-one and getting your inputs and your feedback and collecting those pieces. So how do we proceed for the rest of the night? We're going to be having 4 stations around the second floor of the library where all of the project staff will be available for you to ask us questions, to talk with us. So in the children's section, which is when you checked in at that table, it's right behind that table. There's going to be 2 stations. There's an overall concept design station and project questions, which I'll be working at with Mark Bertucci from our staff. And that's if you have general questions to ask, sort of want to get the big picture or find out which station to go to, you can start with us if you like. We're always there to ask big questions of. Station 2 will be in the children's activity room. We won't make you sit in small children's chairs. You'll get to stand up. And that's where, if you want to talk to the team about what happens sort of curb to curb, the intersections, the roads, the parking, Johnny and city staff from TMP, from Transportation, Mobility, and Parking, will be there to talk through the details of those intersection designs, of the way Burnell will work, of the Wall Street corridor itself, and how that will all work from a roadway and traffic standpoint. In this room, and you'll see the signs are on the back, and when the screen goes up, you'll see Station 3 is right at the back, and that is going to be sidewalks and public spaces. And Wes and Tom will be there to talk about what is the character of Wall Street, what are those spaces around the intersections, those other gathering spaces, and the sort of pedestrian nature of things. And we'll be talking lighting and street trees, and then Station 4, which will be right here, will be Stephanie talking about sort of the gathering spaces and trail connections that she just went over, how to get to and from the Yankee Doodle Garage, connections to the existing regional trail system and how that will all work. So when you're at these stations, we're going to be here till 8 o'clock. And we're here to engage with you and talk. And I'd say there's a couple of things you can do to start. First, ask us questions. We can't have answered everything in this very brief presentation. There's more details you're going to want to get. We're the people to talk to at each of these stations, and we're here to answer your questions. And then we'd like to hear your thoughts, your reactions to these things. And so verbally, of course, we want you to express your opinions, and we want to talk, and we want to sort of gather those things. But it was super effective at the last workshop. At every station, there's a flat table with Post-its on it and markers. And one of the things we really urge you to do is that if you say, you know, I really don't think there's enough bike lanes, or I really love the street trees, positive, negative, a question, whatever it is, we can't hear your feedback on this project, and as Jim said, move forward unless we hear from you, your reactions. So good, bad, questioning, whatever they are, we need to capture those. And so we're here, we'll help you do that, we'll help you write the Post-its, but really engage, get messy. And as Stephanie said, we can put trace paper over the plans. We can mark up the plans with you. We really want you to roll up your sleeves and get busy with us on this design today. So what do you like? What do you want to see changed? What are the unanswered questions that you've got? And so there's a big board at every station where you can post any of those things right up on your own, and we'll sort through them all, we'll catalog them as we did at the first workshop, because we can't move forward without you on this project. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jim, who's going to talk about where does the project go from here.
Howdy, thank you. So I hope that what you saw tonight was a representation of what you brought to us in the last design meeting, right? I think what we committed to you is to have an open, transparent, and honest process, and that you're going to participate in the whole thing. So, it took us a little while to figure out a mechanism to get you to see this, but what we really want to do is get to those breakout sessions and allow you to hone in on the thing that was really important to you. If you wanted to see the whole project in its entirety again, you're going to go into the children's session, right? You're going to have that. But if you wanted to, I just want to talk about the intersection. I was really intrigued by that. I want to learn more. You're going to go to the intersection. You'll look for the folks in the maroon shirts that are going to help to guide you through that process. But I hope that what you're seeing is a representation of what you talked about. I hope that you're pleased. If you're not, then let us know. But where do we go from here? So what this is, if we got it right, we're going to take this and we're going to move this into a design so that we could advance the project. What you're going to see for the area in its entirety, we have submitted to Westcog the plan for East Wall Street. We believe that we've responded to what they are looking for, so we'll be in construction for East Wall Street from Brooks, where Horace Silver grew up and lived, to Maine. So that will start in 2023, as well as the Yankee Doodle garage facade improvements that you've seen. That you want to see them again, you'll be able to see that in the children's room again. That we have parking and intersections in there. All right, and then where we move to the next phase is, if we have it right, what we'll do is fine-tune the intersection improvements for this intersection right outside, as well as the conversion of Burnell with the funding that we've received already. That'll be the integral part of starting that. We'll get that designed. So we're not going to wait for the entire project to be complete. We're going to start to piecemeal parts of it off because we made a commitment that we're going to get it done. That'll be the process in which we do.